So Marie and Bryn, we're going to join virtually. We still need one more.
Yeah.
Andy said they're just getting started in Denver.
Never ending song. Now it's actually supplemental. Now it's time for.
Oh, Dwayne, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Debbie.
Oh, because he's muted. Okay, you're muted there.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Right, well, there was an echo.
Okay.
Yeah, unmute yourself.
All right, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So we still need one more person to have a quorum.
Yeah.
So next year's like.
Hi, Bryn.
Hey, how are you guys?
We are good.
Okay, take it away.
That goes quorum. All right, well, you're stuck with me again. Lucky you all. So move to open the meeting and call to order.
All right. Chair Marie Hotta has not joined the meeting. Vice Chair Andy Sakaris,
Here.
Maggie Burns.
Here.
Bryn Dunning,
Here.
Scott Gilbert,
Here.
Amy Wilson.
Here.
We have City Council Member Chelsea Noonenkamp. And we have Inglewood School Liaison Dwayne Tucker.
Here.
Excused, we have Edie Hughes and Dina Phelps. Staff, we have Director Christina Underhill.
Here.
And Patron Experience Librarian Carrie Watson.
Here.
Right. We are set.
Great. The next step is the approval of the minutes. Did anyone have any changes to the minutes? Such expert note taking.
She was not. Oh, she was. Okay. I'll make the correction. Thank you.
To approve the minutes with the change of the attendance list.
Second thought.
Favor? Opposed? All right. In the packet, there is a quite detailed long letter from a patron. Just, I don't know, if it's a letter, what we do for recognition of public comment, other than please read and digest that said.
Did everyone read it?
I did.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know hold up the meeting, but I'm curious what people thought of it.
I think you're allowed to have supervised visit the verify panel.
I thought it had some important stuff. I mean, I've lived here for nearly 30 years and it really has changed. So changed substantially. I do worry that the sense of chaos around civic center is an existential threat to future. I really do. I think we should pay attention.
Talked to a lot of library managers and directors, in various states and ask, what kind of issues are you seeing? What's a new trend? What we've seen is very much a trend across the nation. And while this is concerning, there's some things the city is doing to increase security. So brand new security contract starts on Saturday. So we'll have a 24/7 security officer on premise here. They'll be doing all of the property too, so that extends down to the Walmart area and around. But they'll be 24/7 here. We have our full-time security guard as well in the library, which is, I think it's helped significantly. I don't know. It seems we get to know the patrons a little bit better, know their first name. They seem to respond better when they see a familiar face. We saw challenges. We won't make that up. That's happening. But during the week, we'll also have a roaming security guard present inside the building that will come through the library multiple times throughout the day in addition to our full-time security guards. So I think the individual brought up some great points, nothing that we weren't aware of. And we're kind of trying to tackle the issues as they pop up. There is no one solution, as we know, with like the homeless population, lots of money across the state is being thrown at homelessness to try to solve it. I don't think we'll ever solve it, but to help mitigate it, and get people the resources they need will be helpful. Knowing that the civic center isn't going to be changing and the library won't be moving in the near future. Now we start to look at some other options, and how we do business. We have Resource Connect on Mondays that we offer our patrons of all walks of life, not just the homeless community. We have a lot of great services. So, yeah, I thought it was interesting, like what she brought up was, there is no one solution. I'm happy she recognized that,
You seem to bring some expertise.
which is great, knowing that she's a former librarian, and that's a big deal.
I mean, it seems to me that inside the walls of the library is starting to get better. I think it's running the gauntlet to get here. That is,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what we're hoping with that roaming security guard coming
Yeah.
through, just kind of all throughout the day.
I'm glad to be.
May help people move on somewhere else that isn't, disturbing is probably the wrong word, but I know moms bring their kids in or dads bring kids in, grandma and grandpa come in for story times, and here's a handful of homeless people sleeping or just hanging out or fighting or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'd say the lobby is one of our biggest challenges.
Yeah.
Because it's not technically our space, it's a civic center
Right.
space.
But it impacts.
But it very much impacts people's ability to feel safe. So hopefully the building's getting will.
I mean, it seems like you guys have done like so much stuff over the past year with security and all that. But it's not easy. You remember how you guys were talking about moving the door over here?
Yeah, that's back on the list for sure, now that we know we're not moving.
Okay.
Well, but like, do you think people will like congregate in that one area? Like now I feel like at least I can use that entrance and no one's ever outside.
That's a good point, and that's something we'll be talking to you all about as we get a little bit more serious. We want to do a feasibility study just on safety exits and stuff, and having a single entry exit point, which logistically means moving computers and staff desks and things around, it costs a little bit of money to do, but if it improves the safety where our security officer is just sitting right there and can look somebody in the eye when they walk in the door and know they've been seen, that may help also. The city manager, we're getting quotes right now to actually do a nice looking fence on both sides of this breezeway here. That could also, especially in the after hours, deter people from sleeping and staying in this area. That's been a big challenge with staff coming in early mornings. And then they tend to move around the building over to the side or, where they aren't seeing much. So if you have ideas, if you've seen things, solutions, let us know. It's kind of an experiment as we go, see what works, what doesn't, change it. Just try to make it safe and better for everybody.
Just a couple of follow-ups and awareness for some folks. One is the new security contract is starting, and also you may not be aware that city technically doesn't own this property, it's being the word environmental protection, and if that, is to change, which is on the agenda for city council, that also changes some of the ways that this space can be monitored, modality there. And also, as you know, the city center area is not activated right now, it's a lot of vacant space. So part of what the Inglewood Economic Development, Downtown Development Association is doing is opening some pop-ups in the space. Part of the strategic plan over the next year is to bring in some artists and use studio space and to activate the vacant space here more, which will also help just make this a more vibrant place. Because people want to be, which also addresses any, I would think, like any safety issues that we're experiencing. Those are some of the things. And then also, if you're not aware, what Christina mentioned about the future of this space, the master developer for this space is no longer pursuing the project in the way that we thought it would be. Doesn't mean that nothing will happen here. It doesn't mean that it will stay in this building forever. It means that if it happens, it'll happen in a different way and in a different timeline. So just awareness of that as well.
Can I ask a question? Did the person who wrote this draft, did you go out anonymous?
Yes.
And this individual actually spoke with Beth, came in and met. Yeah, quite a few times, and so they've had a good working relationship, talking through this, and so I don't want to be,
Yeah, I wish they hadn't spoken as a team. I mean, it definitely always hurts credibility to do something about this.
being that this individual's come in and talk to staff, I think they're pretty credible, but
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
I don't know if we've sort of seen in survey results that we have gotten, if it's sort of safety is one of the bigger concerns from.
Yeah, that's one of the data points that we're still kind of looking at. Anecdotally, yes, which is why we're trying to formalize more the data collection on that front, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But anecdotally, it's repeatedly, I mean, even this morning, a patron came in and said he didn't want to come inside because there was somebody standing at the front door barring his entry. And he literally had to get him to move out of the way to get in. And then he felt unsafe leaving that way and had to go out the other entrance, So, I mean, we hear things like that anecdotally, repeatedly, and we're just trying to figure out ways to kind of quantify some of that anecdotal evidence. And I mean, last week we had 2 incidences that happened right after story time, which meant there was a lot of families and children gathered. And so people escalating and yelling at staff. So what started is kind of small things that ended in yelling at staff members and police having to be called. And so what you just always see to happen when there's so many families yelling around, because you don't know if it impacts their decision to come back in the future or not.
I can tell you, I know people who don't.
Yeah.
Who have stopped.
And that's what we hear, things like this repeatedly, anecdotally, and trying to figure out what they said. Because if it's inhibiting services that were provided, then that's gonna, then we could prove it and say, city and y'all, like, this has changed because of this. That's what we want to be able to do. I'm trying to gather that. It's hard because it's so unless it's a public space and anybody can lock the doors at any times, we're open, so.
Yeah,
And we can't limit people's access
No.
unless we go through legal,
Right, I
procedures.
And I understand the ACLU is they maintain the order in public spaces difficult. Right. Anyway, I mean, it was always a public space. It was through legal.
I wonder if there's a way to advertise what the parking lot is over there, because I feel like a lot of people don't even know anything about it. And I maybe lived here like 2 years before I,
Oh, really?
so maybe that would be something. I know it's like dark and maybe it seems sketchy, but it's.
Well,
Well,
no,
no,
it's actually better. Give me lights.
Yeah, it's really lots.
Yeah, but that's a good point. That might be something that's more one-on-ones, if somebody says something to staff, you're like, oh, did you know you can park back here? Stuff like this, because it really is the lobby that's this lobby.
It's a lobby by the.
By the service
card, yeah.
Any other comments before we move on to reports? Hearing none, we'll move on to reports.
Maybe that's me in place
You're
of
up.
Beth. So as I kind of alluded, one of the main things that we've been trying to do is, and I know Beth mentioned this probably last month, is trying to think of new ways to give the data in a way that's more helpful. And I think Beth is doing a really thoughtful job of trying to not just give you all a list of numbers and kind of help you all see it in a real sense. So I passed y'all a few things that I wanted to show you that's, we're starting a new data collection program, using a software called DART. Lots of area libraries and state use it to collect data. And so we've been implementing it ourselves. The first thing I passed you, I think everybody has copies.
The library will close in 15 minutes. Please bring items to circulation for checkout. The public computers will shut down 5 minutes before closing time. Please save or print documents in the next 10 minutes. Thank you.
He used to work at Disney and now for voices, so we should have him do voices. But this first sheet, this shows you a few ways that we're collecting data, and then I'll pass around. I didn't print off copies for everybody just because I wanted to just let y'all glance at maybe what's coming. We're collecting question types. We're collecting how long we interact with patrons when we do interaction, whether it's in person, whether it's on the phone, whether it's via email, the rough age, whether it's a child, a teen, or an adult. And then trying to categorize these questions and enter in comments. There's space for staff to input comments as well. So we started doing that mid-September. And we're able to we had the goal of kind of fully implementing it October 1, so that by November, we would be able to give you all a full month of data. So I gathered a little bit of data and we made a lot of changes based on staff feedback. At first, we were a little hesitant to roll it out because we felt like we would be giving staff one more thing to do at the desk. But it was actually really exciting to see the staff feedback who were using it, just because they felt a sense of validation filling it out, just because they were able to explain exactly what they were doing at the desk each day. So we've actually had an overwhelmingly positive response from staff who are using it and I mean, even as supervisors, we use it at the desk each day. So kind of like, I wanted to I know that y'all are used to seeing things like this. And so Beth wanted to kind of let you know that for the first month, or for the first half of the month, I guess when you look at like for instance, the big changes are going to come when it comes to counting things, such as, I'm trying to find the exact line it is. It's basically like visitors and interactions. So previously we've used a door counter so that counts when people come in and out. Well, as Beth and I were taking a harder look at it, we realized that we've been giving y'all the number and y'all maybe been receiving the number forever as a big lump number when those are counting ins and outs. So really they kind of need to be halved anyway to give an accurate representation of how many people enter in. And so one thing we started doing, you can see it on this, is we've been doing hour counts throughout the day and having a supervisor or a security person walk around and count how many people are physically in the building each hour, just so that we can kind of see the ebb and flow of the movement of people throughout the day. And still keeping up with counting numbers of attendance at programs. As you can see on that sheet, this is for October 10th, Monday. There were 74 people at 10:30, noting that there was a story time going on. There was also a group and peer meeting. Still at 11:30, 65 story time was kind of still ending and people were milling around. And then you can kind of see as it changes throughout the day. So that's one thing we're trying to figure out how to best we're going to have a full month of that data to present in November. And we're trying to figure out the best way to give that to y'all in a way that feels digestible and helpful for you to see the actual flow of people throughout the week. Another thing, we've been doing is instead of just the click counts, which is the way that we have been, we're gonna start using just this DART data. So as you can see, on that, the handouts I passed away around, it kind of shows you all the different ways that we can keep track of it in data. And so for instance, I just wanted to kind of give you a few samples just based on our September data. So like from September 17th to 30th, we collected 1,598 interactions. And one way I've been trying to just like look at it and break it down is kind of thinking like Monday through Thursday averages, you know, we're about 147 interactions per day. With Friday being less hours that were open, more 9:30 to 5, we've got 100. On the weekend, Saturday, we're open 9:30 to 5 again, only 61 on average interactions. Sunday, that's the noon to 5, about 50 on average. So we're kind of trying to gather all of that on a day-to-day aspect too, to just kind of see what it looks like, what the ebb and the flow looks like throughout the week. You know, I wanted to point out, you know, about 20% of the questions that we answered were related to computer help or copying and printing. We issued 140 guest passes. So that's when people don't have library cards and don't want a computer use card. It's a more anonymous way for them to use the computers. They can only use it for 30 minutes at a time. During those 14 days, we issued 140 of those. 25% of questions were related to patron accounts, whether it's getting a new library card, updating your library card, looking up at their account to see what items maybe needed renewed or putting books on hold. So I guess one question that Beth and I had for you is, what are the things that y'all are most curious to see as we prepare and gather this information for next month? Because things that are interesting to us here might not be the same thing that y'all want to see. And so that's one piece of feedback that we're looking for from y'all is, what are y'all most curious about what happens in the library? The other note I did want to note that Beth wanted me to point out is down at the bottom of the packet report is the incident reports with how many verbal warnings, ejections, exclusions, and then other, which she did let me know what the others were. A lot of that is like if we have to, if patron asks us to call 911, but it's not necessarily a formal, nobody's getting excluded or thrown out. Or there were a couple of incidents where patrons thought some of their belongings had been stolen and you know, report that. But that's something that we're also gonna include that's new. But I'll let y'all kind of ponder and let me know, and I will pass along to Beth. And this is something she and I have been working on closely. So whatever y'all are curious about, let me know. And I want to be able to present it well with y'all next month. So, I mean, and I can show you things I've been playing around with. I want, to me, it's interesting. Let me find it. Yeah. Like looking at line graphs, like what the ebb and flow looks like throughout the week. We're able to pull out like how many people are using the self-checkout and at various times, how many people are checking things out at the desk, and kind of overlay some of that information. So that's just some ideas of what we can find out for you.
Well, I think this hourly thing is pretty helpful, especially because for a long time we've been talking about like, are the hours the best hours?
Right, right.
And that's part of the reason
Yeah.
we're digging deeper.
Yeah,
It's not
that's
just like,
It's like a very good visual.
Hi, can I say something? Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm here. Sorry, everyone. I would specifically be, I think we're like constantly like grabbing for feedback from patrons. So I think that like the feedback that any of these conversations lead to is especially helpful to the board. Like that letter is the first bit of public comment that we have had in the 4 years that I've been on this board. So I think that any of those things should specifically be brought to us personally.
Okay.
Thank you. And also, would you be able to send this
Yes,
to us? Thank you.
yeah, I have it on my list.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Debbie.
It's sort of an ill-formed on specialized and I mean, to the extent that you can get narratives from patrons, I think would be helpful instead of just basic numerical, and, graphical data. I would, like when I read a survey, I like look at the numbers for one minute and then try to find the comments,
And that's what we're trying to find, a good balance of collecting the quantitative data, but balance it in a good way with the qualitative data that's so helpful to get the feel of what's happening. Yeah, and that's what we're trying to figure out good ways of. We've started pushing the
The
comment.
library will close in 5 minutes. Please finish your work and head towards the exits. Thank you for visiting.
Just in a hope too, that instead of patrons just coming to us to maybe complain about something that's going on, is just encouraging them to write it down. Because even today, a patron came in, he was upset about something that was happening outside of the building. And I said, well, can't in the library really help you with that. But if the city is the one who wants to know what's going on. And so the best thing you can do is let the city know, not even just us. And I think trying to figure out, help people realize the ways of communication that are open to them.
Yeah.
So that they can provide that narrative. So, yeah, I think.
Yes.
Does the city have any kind of like billable form online from citizens?
I know the library has public form that people can fill out online. We call it Ask the Librarian, but I don't know if the city does or not.
We have an email, where people can, email questions or comments, things like that, and that will get dispersed to the appropriate department. But not really a form to fill out.
That's what happened to be created. Low tech skills. That's what came to mind. That's all.
Really, like, our job is to be representative of people, and so then the best way, if you have any issues, contact, of course, our person.
I'm gonna shut it up. Yeah.
Anyone have any questions on this statistical report?
If there's something you think of in the middle of the night, you're like, oh, that would be awesome, I want to know about that, email Debbie, that myself, whoever. Get it over to us. We can start working on it.
All right, Marie, Bryn, and Dwayne, do you want me to share the action report on the screen, or do you have that you're okay? All right.
Yep,
That
I've got
way
it.
I can see them.
Thank you.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so the only two updates in the action report, one was under item 3, which is implement a study of current library hours and services. So a lot of this data collection stuff is exactly what we're trying to do with this. And I know that Beth has probably alluded to it before, but we are trying to figure out hours of service compared to what we actually can staff, especially. One of the biggest concerns, this is kind of like my spoiler for next time, is we have 10 associates that were allotted that do all of our front desk work. And they're hired at 20 hours per week, which is 200 manpower hours. Well, if you look at our desk schedule and you look at our hours of operation, we need about 260 hours of manpower. So even in a best case scenario with everybody here, I mean, just that very first number becomes impossible to meet. And I'll talk way more about that next month. But that's one of the reasons we're trying to get a feel for what the actual library looks like during the day. you know, certain times of the day, certain times of the week, so that we can figure out how best to meet the needs of the city. Just because given the operating budget we have to kind of figure out how to best provide services within those. So that's the big September update, is just implementing all of this and trying to gather that data. And then, there was also an update under children's services, just letting y'all know, about the current things that we're getting wrapped up Storytime in the Park series with an average attendance of 300, including adults and children. One of the new programs, which one of my daughters is actually part of, the Early Reader Book Club, which is really neat, kind of geared towards that pre-tween phase, so a little bit too little for the preschool stuff, more geared to kind of the fetus second, which is really fun. And some of our passive programs that are going on. And I guess the way that this plays into the service side of things too, is when we are short-staffed, we have to pull people from.
The library is now closed.
To serve,
You will
service
tomorrow at 9:30 a.m.
Which.
Thank you.
You know, makes it really difficult to pull off all the children's stuff. Having to pull all. Yeah. So that's another thing.
Is the 20 hours come up, is that come up?
No, the actual benefits cutoff is 29, but the way that we're allotted budget money to pay staff, we're only allotted money to pay for 20 hours a week. So they can, in theory, work up to 29, but if they did so, we would run out of personnel money by the end of the year. So that's the struggle that we're kind of running into, is staff would work more and we would need them to work more, but just with our pots of money, it would run out by the end of the year if they did. So those are all things that I'm going to talk a lot about next time.
And we have requested 2 full-time positions for next year's budget, but due to inflationary costs and a whole lot of other things going on, really no positions were funded, so we'll keep asking.
Yeah, and that's the struggle we're kind of running into, is like, we wonder if 2023 might have to be kind of a rebuilding year, as Beth kind of does this really intensive relook at things to try and get things organized for a new budget year. Just because everything was kind of set in motion before she got here. And so those are the things we're trying to figure out, is how to best staff and provide services for the library, given the constraints that we do for the next budget year.
Beth and Carrie will talk about this, but just high level considerations, looking instead of opening at 9:30, just open at 10, then closing at 7:30, just close at 7, possibly not be open on Sundays. That's where they're digging into the counts of how many people are coming in. So that's just high level, it's the high level conversation that Beth and I have had. But something to think about for next year's budget and the needs. And as we see security issues continue, obviously, people that may be out sick or on vacation, or staff members shrink if we can't get somebody to fill in. And so that's a concern too, is making sure that staff are safe too, having enough staff on board each day, so. So that's the action plan.
I always, sorry, I always like to toot Hillary's horn, or Kimberly's horn, and I just am thrilled that she started this early readers club. My daughter went as well, Carrie, and
Yeah.
it is just so great, and I'm really happy that she started that program.
Any other questions about the action plan? We are down to 0 on our remaining budget. Unfortunately, there's not a couple extra zeros in there to help you out, but it's got, we actually did it by October, which is great. There's nothing listed under old business, new business, it's a staff update.
Yeah, I think what she had in mind is just kind of what you said,
Yeah.
trying to figure that out. We have found out in the last week, even 3 current staff are resigning, which.
We were fully staffed
Yeah.
for, I think,
10 seconds.
2 days. We had no openings.
So unfortunately, even like the 200 is still pie in the sky, because really we only have
Yeah.
You know, we have 7 staff providing.
Can you take the cost savings and put it 2 additional hours between?
Well, that's what we do. It's funny, I think that's how they've kept the ship afloat thus far, is kind of banking on people leaving and being able to shift those hours, which I think is why Beth is understandably frustrated, because it's kind of banking on the fact that people quit and then you can't reassign their hours, which is not very good of a long-term solution.
And it's been consistent. I think it was 3 years in the running, we were never fully staffed. And like finally this year, for the first time in 3 years, maybe longer, staffed. There was like, yay, and then somebody left. And you're like,
And then it snowballs this week.
Across the board.
and I know Beth does talk to the staff and ask, you know, why. Some, it might be personal reasons, medical reasons. If it's security related reasons, we want to know that, you know, if they don't feel safe coming to work, we don't know. And so I know she's been talking to each person and they say they're resigning and going somewhere else. A lot have left for full-time jobs, which we're very happy for them for that. Sad to lose them, but proud that we've trained them well. But they've moved on, so.
What an industry trends, well, obviously, hiring right now is very challenging, but for libraries specifically.
I feel like I don't know if it's industry specific. I know it's definitely true across the board, at least things like anecdotally.
Seems like there's a lot of postings.
Yeah.
Not only in Colorado, but across the US, so just openings constantly.
Full-time library positions are generally fairly competitive, just because you have to have the MLS to do it, and then sometimes it's hard to get in if you don't have any previous library experience. So that is the one thing about having a part-time staffing model, is it gives a lot of, especially library students, the chance to gain experience that they might not be able to gain elsewhere. But it does mean that if we depend on students, then there's just such a high rate of turnover, just because they're not going to speak.
There's a strong library science program in the state. Do we partner with you for sort of pipeline?
We get a lot of DU students. It's not even just library science students. It's any of their grad students, social work. We get a lot of their social work students as well. So I would say a fair amount. I'm not sure if I would consider it a pipeline directly. I mean, honestly, that's how I started working here, is because I was actually doing library school in North Carolina. But I was doing my internship at DU and I needed public library internship hours as well. So kind of an internship was then able to develop into a part-time job, which then now it's a full-time job, which is exciting. But I don't think it's formalized.
It seems like that could be a good project.
Yeah.
In the future of your ever-flowing place,
Yes.
but, you know, it is a great program. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're probably the closest library to your campus.
Yeah.
I think, or one of them.
Well, and being a standalone library, we don't always, you know, a lot of times you're applying to a billion places. And because we're just one library, it seems a lot more efficient to throw your name in a hat in a bigger library system, because they have more jobs open and available. But at the same time, it does feel like constantly hiring. So, yeah.
Right, anything for staff's choice?
Trunk or treats coming up October 22nd. I'll be here on the second floor of the parking garage. I think it's 3 to 6, the time frame. But yeah, that's exciting.
You need any support with that? That's sharing it.
If you want to bring a trunk, we're recruiting. We will have candy to give you.
You had to ask Andy.
Oh, God.
Yeah, what is that sign? Like people sign up to do that?
Yeah, there is, if you go to /events on the website, you'll be able to find trunk or treat on there. Sign up to either have a trunk there or sign up to participate too. We found through COVID, there's some things that changed during COVID, like instead of just having a free for all, it is kind of nice to know head counts. We give enough candy and don't run out and all of that. Some things are quite beneficial.
I wish life had that, because I have no idea how much candy to buy for all. I might get 100 kids or 2.
Exactly.
Board members' choice?
I might have to work election night, so I will try to do it virtually, because I don't want to miss your presentation.
Yeah,
It is recorded.
Yeah.
It's just,
we may want to move it for election night.
that's probably not a bad idea.
Actually, yeah.
I mean, I will not be here.
Right.
For the third reporter, I will be kind of balanced above.
Yeah, I don't have any way to work that.
Well, do you guys want to decide what that looks like? If we move it?
Could we just
Sure.
move it to the 15th?
Yeah, I think it works for the city votes.
We meet in
I'm-
the library. So no company. I work every Tuesday.
Hey, I'm trying to be respectful.
I appreciate it. So we move it to Tuesday, November
15th?
same time, same place.
Yeah,
I will not be here if we move it, just FYI.
Oh,
that's okay.
Marie too, you'll be out.
I'm out. Yes, sorry.
Bryn and Marie will be here.
No. Oh my God, please let me be at the meeting. I'm so
Okay.
sorry. I've missed so many meetings. It's killing me. No, I should be there.
Okay.
Council's choice.
Right? I have a couple updates that people indulge me briefly. As Christina mentioned, the budget was a challenge this year. We passed it on first reading, and yeah, the second reading today. And just awareness for this group about how the decision-making process went, some of those requests is out of about, oh gosh, to be honest here, a $60 million operating budget. We experienced at least 1 million plus just inflation that is gone, right? And looking at the capital needs of the city, looking at safety needs of the city, we actually ended up pulling from our reserves to balance the budget. So that's not a place where you want to be. And Christina's right, the only staff that we this budget were and so we're acknowledging where we're at, we're acknowledging where the economy is at, where the city's at, and we'd love to fund everything. Those are the tough calls. So there will be more tough calls to make. And if you have questions about any of that, please let me know. But that is in process. And then to that end, you will see as we have elections, but there are going to be 2 initiatives on the ballot. The city council has reported to the ballot this year. One is they're both small sales tax increases. One will be to fund our alternative police officers. So as we talked about tonight, we are the second, I think, or third municipality in the entire state to have a mental health mobile response unit who's going out and working with our citizens who are experiencing mental health challenges in the community, experiencing safety challenges. It's our co-responder program. A lot of that work that's being housed right now in our police department does not have dedicated funding. And the more that we can secure dedicated funding for those programs, the more else will free up other funding for other safety related features in the city. And then the second measure you'll see on your ballot is for road maintenance. So right now we're experiencing, I'm sure you've noticed, really big capital, like infrastructure challenges in the community. And it's because all of our road maintenance costs are coming out of our capital budget. So if we can actually, again, like dedicated funding, just basic street maintenance at a fair rating, not anything that's to the best rating, and it will also free up more capital funding like bridges and parks. And given where we are in Colorado and with Tabor, these are decisions that are going to be made by the community if the community wants to invest in those things. Like I say, so if you have questions about any of those, talk to me or any of the members of the council that wanted to give you a heads up about why those are on the ballot and what you can expect. And then the last thing, City Council has also just authorized staff to move forward with a youth advisory commission. I believe the public library board is one of our boards that has members, is that correct?
Library, yeah, library and.
Library
arts.
and cultural arts have 1, Parks and Rec has 2 that are all vacant.
And we've had a hard time recruiting young people to serve on these positions. And we've also heard from some young people that it's challenging and maybe a little intimidating to serve on a commission with adults, right? And we've heard some feedback from youth in the community about what if there was a commission just for young people and what would it look like for them to advise the city on issues. And so that's a commission that will be coming that we want to pilot and see, is there appetite here? We're working with the school district on how that conversation. We'll continue to work with Dwayne and with others on how that can happen. But I think that the library is also a really natural tie-in for that kind of program, right? How do we publicize also within, use this as one of the areas where folks can connect, right? And learn about the opportunities they, can take again, for me, how do we engage young people in the civic process to show them how they can create change? So that's coming as well. So we'll give you a preview of some of the stuff we've been working on. Sorry.
No.
That's awesome.
Anything from you, Dwayne, from the school district?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Just a couple things real quick. Reminder, if any of you are interested, a week from tonight is the we're going to be talking about our next our next strategic plan. That one's open to anyone in Inglewood. If you guys want to come by and listen in and give us feedback, you can, or you can also look at the strategic plan online and give feedback through an anonymous survey if that's of interest to you. And then we are really close to getting the timeline nailed down for the superintendent search. We will also be offering open forum / town halls for anyone to come engage with those candidates. We're tentatively penciling those in for November 29th and 30th. And we should have that finalized within the next week, and that information will be on our website as well. So would love for you all to participate in both of those events if you want to. And that's what I have, Andy. Thank you.
All righty. Anybody have anything else before, unfortunately, we lose the folks that are on the screen, but do the library tour? Anybody?
I just wanted to clarify something that I thought I heard at the beginning of the meeting, and I just wanted to clarify. Christina, did you say that the library is not moving? We are staying in our current facility, and I just wanted to clarify if I heard that right.
For right now, yes.
Okay.
Yes. At least it won't be in the next year or two.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, I will move to adjourn us. I don't think we need to vote. I will use my power. We are adjourned.
Thank you all. I'll see you in
Bye,
November.
Bye.
Thanks, you guys.
Anybody remember when the library was in that little building